Welcome to Doctors of the Past, where we prescribe the best medicine to cure your historical curiosity.
Today's patient, chariot racing. We'll examine how it emerged as a sport and became one of the most popular and dangerous spectacles of the ancient world.
But did you know where it all began? How did it change over time? What variations existed? Who took part? Stay with us and you'll find out.
More than 3 years had passed, yet Januarius still carried the weight of grief over Floris's death. The guilt gnawed at him. Not a day went by without tears as he relived the moment his world collapsed. The day little Floris, not yet 6 years old, slipped from his biga and was trampled by the horses of his older brother, Lucius. No one blamed Januarius, but he blamed himself. He should have been there. He should have stopped the fall. He should have shielded the boy. He stopped in his tracks. Before him stood Floris's tomb, richly adorned with the child's favorite motif, horses. He didn't need to read the Carmina that kept the young jockey's spirit alive. He knew it by heart. Every evening at sunset, he came to ask forgiveness.
While we probably could trace the origins of chariot racing back to the invention of the wheel, we'll focus on a major historical breakthrough that dramatically improved the speed and weight of carriages. We're talking about the shift from 4 solid wheels to 2-wheeled chariots with spokes. First seen in the battle chariots of the Mitanni and the Hurrian in the mid-2nd millennium BC. This innovation spread swiftly across the Mediterranean, and the Minoans began practicing horse racing as a sport not exclusively tied to funerary rituals. It would be impossible to imagine the great Ramesses II firing arrows at the Hittites in the Battle of Kadesh from any other type of chariot, but that's another story. At the ancient Olympic Games in the city of Elis, horse races were among the most anticipated events and were open only to the wealthiest citizens of the Greek city-states. It was the only sport where athletes were allowed to wear clothes, and along with the mounted horse race, it was one of the few competitions where women could win. That's because the olive crown was awarded to the horse's owner, not the driver or rider. Up to 60 chariots, some from the same owner, could compete with starting positions drawn by lot in a complex pyramid system. The hippodrome was rectangular with a post at the end. To win the Nike or victory, they had to complete up to 12 laps, roughly 9 kilometers. Among the most famous winners was Philip II of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great, who won the 4-horse chariot race in the 352 games and the 2-horse chariot race at the next Olympics in 348 BC. It's also worth noting Cynisca, the sister of King Agesilaus II of Sparta, who won in 396 and 392 BC. She erected a bronze sculpture of a full 4-horse chariot in her honor at the temples of Mount Olympus. Chariot races also served as the perfect distraction for the Sabian people during the festival of the god Consus, an event the Romans cunningly used to kidnap all the women they could find to marry in 753 BC. These early competitions took place around the god's temple. Later, a dirt track and a central dividing line were established, and the cult of Consus was relegated to an underground altar, which over time would become the site of the Circus Maximus. Though Rome didn't invent chariot racing, despite what Ben-Hur might suggest, it elevated the sport to dizzying heights. The famous phrase from the poet Juvenal, panem et circenses, bread and circuses, highlights how the people's contentment depended on a full belly and guaranteed entertainment. This surge in popularity was fueled by a crucial change in driving technique. The Romans switched from using both hands to handle the reins to using just one for a whip and tying the reins around their waist to steer the horses. This change, while offering better control, meant that if a driver fell, they would be dragged through the sand, often leading to serious injury or even death. To mitigate the dangers, drivers were trained from childhood, and a commission had to grant them permission to advance from driving a 2-horse chariot, biga, to a 4-horse one, quadriga. The horses themselves had to have at least 5 years of training before they could compete. Only 4 chariots were allowed on the track at a time, each representing one of 4 factions linked with major Roman gods: Venus for the green faction, Mars for the red one, Jupiter linked with the white team, and Neptune with the blue one. The green team was often the crowd favorite, as well as the choice of populist emperors, while the upper class preferred the blue one. The emperors themselves typically favored the red faction. Each race, of which there were usually 24 per spectacle, consisted of 7 counterclockwise laps around a central dividing barrier called the spina. This is where Augustus placed an obelisk he had plundered from the Egyptian city of Heliopolis in the 13th century BC. Today, that obelisk stands in Rome's Piazza del Popolo. This is also where judges kept a unique count of the laps. They would place 7 eggs on a high perch, lowering each time the first chariot completed a lap. When the last driver finished the lap, a dolphin would be raised. This system allowed the audience to know exactly how many laps were left and if all the racers had completed the lap. The emperors who left us the most vivid anecdotes about these races were Nero and Caligula. Nero reportedly won an Olympic race despite falling out of his chariot on a turn. Caligula was said to have slept with his horse from the green faction before every competition, and only lost once. After that defeat, he reportedly had the driver who beat him slowly killed as punishment for his slowness. Like modern horse racing, huge sums of money were wagered on the races, which put them in direct conflict with Christian doctrine. But the sport was so deeply rooted in Roman society that it continued to thrive, regardless of religion. It should be no surprise then that according to the medieval biography of Saints Cosmas and Damian, one of their miracles was freeing the spirit of a fanatical equestrian who had been bewitched and condemned to remain in the circus after his death.
As with every video, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Did you know how dangerous the job of an ancient chariot driver was?
Were you aware that the first horse races were linked to the Minoans?
And that it was as popular and expensive a spectacle as gladiator game?
We want to read your diagnosis in the comments. Click subscribe if this treatment worked for you, and join us next time for another powerful historical remedy.